Welcome to the Shame-Free Sex Podcast. I'm your host, Brielle Starr from shamefreesex.com. By tuning in today, you are taking your next bold step towards fully embracing your authentic sexual self, absolutely shame-free. It's time to take your power back from shame and experience the life of your dreams, both in the bedroom and beyond. Let's embark on this transformative, shame-free journey together. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another fabulous episode of the Shame-Free Sex Podcast. Today, I am joined by the amazing Penny Vandersluys, and in today's episode, she is going to be sharing about rewriting the myths around menopause and shifting to an empowering narrative around midlife. Penny is a certified somatic sex coach, NLP Master Practitioner, pleasure activist, and self-declared radiant rebel, leading a movement to reframe menopause and midlife as a powerful portal, not a problem. And I love this topic so much, and I love the work that you are doing in the world, Penny. So thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thanks, Brielle. I'm so glad I can be here and looking forward to this conversation.
Yes, me too. I'm so looking forward to this conversation. As anyone who's listened to some of the other episodes might be able to tell, I had lost my voice for like a week previous to this, and it finally came back probably magically in time to speak with you for this magical episode. So I'm so excited, and I would love if we could just get started by hearing some more about you. Your bio is fabulous. We didn't even read the whole thing, but could you just tell us about what ultimately led you or inspired you to do the work that you do today? What's your mission, and why do you do it?
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity. Look, I'd probably start with I didn't know I was going to grow up and be a sex coach. So it's definitely been an evolution. And I guess I feel like I'm hitting my strides and getting to know myself the most in my 40s. So I'm 49 and life is awesome. And I'm here to let people know that because there is so much messaging in our culture and in the media that talks about women's lives unraveling and going downhill rapidly as soon as they hit 40 or start aging, whenever that is deemed, the reality, which is so not true. So, yeah, I guess I have had a background in being interested in people. I worked in HR and psychology and in the community. And in all that time, no one really talked about things that I think are our power, our superpowers, which is our feminine sort of yin qualities, energies, and also our sex and sensuality and our feminine body parts that have incredible power. So I was like, isn't this really interesting? In all these parts that I've worked in, it was never celebrated. And when I started to notice who was their most powerful and embodied selves, they were women who were speaking to these parts of their lives or really owning them. And I was like, I want what they're having. What are they having? And it kind of led me to where I am now. So that's kind of a roundup. The other major thing was I discovered the power of sisterhood or sistership or sister circles, women's circles, whichever way you want to call it. But I had for so long thought women needed to be like men, essentially, to survive in the world, to be powerful. And so I think we were kind of programmed into competing with each other and not necessarily supporting each other. So when I discovered that that wasn't the best way and the truth, and there was another way, it's changed my life being around women and collaborating and supporting each other and seeing us sort of lift each other higher. So that kind of the major things that have led me to where I am in a roundabout way.
Yeah, beautiful. I loved hearing kind of a brief recap of some of the different things that led you into this journey and this work. And you mentioned how there isn't a lot of talk around a lot of this stage of people's lives, and what is said is often negative or disempowering. And do you find that that actually affected you long before you actually entered this stage of your life? Do you think that all of this messaging was affecting you your entire life, even up until you entered the quote unquote midlife stage?
It's really interesting. I think in some ways I was oblivious to it. I felt like I was, now I know, a fish swimming in the water, and I couldn't sense that I was swimming in the water. That was conditioning me to feel disconnected from my body, not trust my body, turn to other people for advice rather than going within and using my intuitive guidance, for example, or listening to the messages of my body. So I feel like I was oblivious, so that, and many women who are in their mid to late 40s and beyond don't even realize they're in perimenopause. It wasn't even a word I knew about. Um, like literally, it wasn't, I would not have known what you meant. And then as far as like the generations above us, like my mum never mentioned it to me, other, like literally just had no conversations about it. So it was very much hidden until you were in it and you're like, am I in it? What is this thing? And I feel like there's yeah, it's coming, it's definitely changing, and there's a lot more information out there now. But what I'm finding quite alarming is it's very much around it's a disease or there's something broken around symptoms, the way the language has been created around this part time of life is quite disempowering. So I'm here to shift that. And I call myself a radiant rebel because what I'm realizing is I feel like I'm the one, not the one, there's definitely others, but wanting to say this can be a really positive, amazing time of your life. It doesn't have to be the way that we're conditioned to believe it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe even experiencing, look, there's nothing to say it's an easy time, but I think it's around, and that's why I wanted to use the word reframing. It's like, how do we look at it glass half full versus glass half empty? How do we choose to focus on things that are positive, and we can recognize that we've gone through loads of different changes in our life, and this is just another one. It's a rite of passage. We have been through puberty. Some of your listeners might be going through pregnancy or parenthood, and they are also life stages, and we go through them, and no one's blaming anyone or sending them to the doctor and saying there's something wrong with you if you're pregnant. They're going, congratulations, well done, you're growing a baby. And of course, things are going to change and things are going to be challenging, and your hormones are going to shift over that change in as you grow a baby. But the same thing's happening in menopause too. Yet we're kind of made to feel like something's broken and wrong with us. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's so important that you even point that out in itself, just hearing it out loud. I would imagine it's really powerful for so many women to hear or recognize that they might have been perceiving this stage of their life as a disease or a downfall, something negative, all around negative. And I love hearing you say that there can be so many positive things to see, as well as, of course, the symptoms and things that are coming up. And I know, at least for me, there I've had a lot of messaging that I need to do everything while I'm young, and that when you get older, yeah, everything starts falling apart, whether it be your body, your sex life, all these things that are so not necessarily true at all. So I'm so glad you're here today to keep sharing about that. And so with that being said, you've mentioned some of these things, but could you tell us maybe some common phrases or common myths that you hear thrown around a lot when it comes to menopause and midlife?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, there's the one you touched on, sex, so that you lose your sex drive or libido, you dry up, so you're physically, your vagina will dry up and that will make it painful. I've even heard that your labia will shrink. Like there's all these kind of things that when you hear them out of context can be quite alarming. You can like go, what does that mean? Is that a bad thing? Is that a good thing? And I guess some of the things that I want to reframe and give people the opportunity to consider, it changes. Our body changes. If we look at our whole lifetime, it's changing all the time. What you like to eat when you were 5 might be different to what you like to eat now you're 25 or whatever. So things are changing all the time, and it doesn't mean it's irreversible. It's like an evolution and a journey. And the same with our sex drive and our sex, our libido and our interests. But some of it's like maybe we're not um, how would I say? Maybe we don't have the attraction in the partnership that we thought we had. There's lots of different factors I think that can change. One of the big things that happens in midlife is your estrogen level can drop. And what estrogen does is make us, well, it's kind of like a self-consciousness. We start worrying about how we are and start to focus our attention on other people. It increases in puberty. So that's why when we go through puberty, suddenly everyone starts to worry about how they look and how they appear, and they get interested in partners and friendship circles and things like that. Whereas when you're a child, you don't really care. You're just having a good time. The estrogen is increasing at that time, and we have it all through our reproductive years, and it drops towards the end of our reproductive years. And it's kind of like a veil, and it makes us not worry about ourselves. And when it starts to be removed, this veil, it means that we start to realize, hey, we actually do matter, and what we think about and what we desire is actually relevant. And that's what's happening in this time of life. You start to focus on, hey, maybe I do really care about pleasure, and I do want to have pleasurable experiences with people. And maybe I've been putting up with things and overriding my body's messages for decades, and now it's time for me to reclaim it. So I think it's actually a positive. It's like finally you can get your power that you haven't really been plugged into because estrogen has been running the show. And all we're really hearing about, and one of the things that people get alarmed about, is our estrogen drops, and that means potentially like there's some health effects, like for example maybe your heart's weakened or your bones and all this type of thing, and therefore you need to go on hormone replacement therapies and patches and things like that. I guess where I feel like I would like people to consider first, and before they go outsourcing their power and their body's natural functions to other things, is to consider, what can I do that's within my control? And it would be things like, what am I putting in my body? What am I putting on my body? So can I remove toxins and things that are adding pressure to my body, which is then going to mean that it can't do the normal functions like produce the hormones that it is meant to be producing, for example. Reducing stress, cortisol becomes a priority for our body, and it means we don't do all the normal things that we need to do. So even when you're reducing the amount of, say, estrogen as you age, you at least want the body to be able to produce what it does need. And if it's got all these other things that it needs to do to manage daily stress, which we have a lot of in the Western world, that can be a deterrent and an overarching problem as well. What else is there? I mean, there's a bunch of things around like sleep and exercise. Focus on these things first before you go to, oh my goodness, I need to now quickly replace my body's changing functions, really. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was a roundabout way of dumping a whole lot of information.
Yeah. No, it was really great information. I'm super happy to hear about that. And I was so inspired by what you mentioned about actually being able to look more inward and discover, oh, I actually do want to explore more with pleasure, or I perhaps discovering it for the first time for anyone who that hasn't been a big part of their life, or all of the different things of just not caring as much about what everyone else is doing, which is such a waste of time. I know from personal experience, it's such a waste of time. So it's always exciting to hear about this empowerment that can come. And so I'm
Yeah.
wondering, do you find that this stage could be a really beautiful opportunity for self-discovery in really any capacity? Of course, the realms of pleasure and embodiment, as well as just confidence. Is there serious confidence that could come from this and embracing this era?
Absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of people, and it's because, again, of the world we live in, we don't have a lot of trust in our body, and we go to, I need a partner in order to be satisfied sexually, or I need it to look my body to look a particular way in order to be acceptable or to experience pleasure and all these sorts of things. I guess one of the things that I'm starting to discover, and you don't have to wait till your midlife to do it, is to learn about what is my pleasure landscape, like what is it that my unique body desires, and what are the messages my body's telling me. And I think we override it because even sex has been conditioned to be a particular, usually penis and vagina definition, and it's quite limited. if you can broaden your understanding of what sexual pleasure can involve, and it doesn't need to involve another person and it doesn't need to look a particular way, you suddenly have this much broader, bigger possibilities available to you. And that's where it can be really exciting, I think, in life when you can work, hey, wow, it's like a smorgasbord, and I've only been eating the cheese, and there's all this other food on the table, and I haven't even considered it. And maybe I won't like it, but wouldn't it be interesting to try and realize that at different times in my life, with different people, different seasons, everything can taste different. We know that. Sometimes you go, yeah, it's a cheese kind of season. Sometimes it's salad. Sometimes it's warm food. Everything's different. And so the possibilities become endless. And I think that's really exciting. Not sure if I answered your question
Oh,
though.
you did. I love that. I love that the possibilities are endless. That's so exciting and just empowering all around. So much of what you've shared today is already so empowering and shifting some of these narratives from where people might feel stuck in only the negativity. And it sounds like when you were talking about all the possibility that curiosity could play a really big role here. Do you think that curiosity is important when embracing this era of our lives?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, I mean, one of the things that I've learned, and it's through years of personal development and coaching and all that sort of thing, is if we can realize that we're the creator of our own lives and everything starts with us, and then instead of we're kind of led to believe that the world's kind of coming at us and the situation is as is, whereas if you can create as like, I'm the one who is the source of my own pleasure. I'm responsible for my own pleasure. I can learn about my own pleasure, like I suggested. You can start to get curious and like, well, what do I feel like today? Like, check in because, and I think I was about to touch on it before. We learn that sex is quite performative and it looks a particular way. And so we think, I need to have orgasm in order for it to be a worthwhile sexual experience. And if I don't, something's wrong with me, or that wasn't a particularly good, or I let someone down. I mean, there's all these sort of, I guess, sexual scripts that we have that we don't necessarily realize are impacting us and limiting and kind of stopping us from accessing all these other parts. But when you can become, I mean, I'm a somatic sex coach, so that's really coming back into the body. It's realizing a lot of our life is run by our analytical, logical, rational mind, and it kind of rules the show. And that's because, again, it's valued more. But when you can start to realize our sensual body is where it's at, like that's really, like I was saying earlier too, the softness, the receptivity, the creativity, all these parts of us that I didn't value in the majority of my life. I kind of saw them as weaker or less than or not useful. And to be honest, they're our superpower. They're the things that make us happiest. They make us, you know, when you're embodied, that's when you can actually feel, that's when you can actually start to connect with people. You have the vulnerability that you need to have a really great sexual encounter is the same as you need to have a connection with a good friend or a good, um, colleague or whatever. You need to be vulnerable in order to create close connection. And you don't need to necessarily wait years and years and years to create that. Like, I think that's what I've learned in life. You know, I used to think I had to be years and years into friendships or in a great relationship for a long time in order to go somewhere really deep and connected. But I think when you know your limitations and your body and your powers, you can go deep really quick, which is exciting as well.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I always love hearing about vulnerability. I think it's such an important topic, and I'd imagine some women might find difficulty being vulnerable, especially in a phase of their life when they're going through a lot of changes, whether that be their body, their hormones, their mind, their thoughts, all the different things that might be happening. Is there anything else you could just share with us about vulnerability and how to really be open up and be vulnerable and be confident, especially if people are struggling to be vulnerable in something such as a sexual encounter or a romantic relationship?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh, look, I think if you know from the outset that it's not a bad thing. Like that's a good beginning point to go, this could be the key. This could be my access to something that I haven't been there before. I mean, I also think our life begins on the edge of our comfort zone. Like we live in a particular kind of bubble, and if you really want to expand or grow or experience other things, you do have to broaden that and open that up a bit, which requires leaning into those edges. And that requires being vulnerable because there's an element of unknown and risk, I guess, that something might go out of your control. So there's that goes back to some of those what we would call feminine. I'm not saying it's gendered, but yeah, it's definitely the ability to surrender and trust and open yourself up, open your heart up to what you're going to get in return. And I think so when I was sort of suggesting that some of it's hard, like we've been given a big fat lie that life is easy and life should be easy. And if it's not easy, then we're doing something wrong. Whereas I'd actually go the other way and it's like life needs to be challenging. It's kind of like the growth. We could go back to that. Um, the caterpillar, in order to turn into a butterfly, needs to go through breaking through the chrysalis and the strengthening of its wings. It needs that challenge. It needs that tension. It needs, so a creative process needs tension. At birth, for example, in nature, you will see it has to go through challenge and difficult situation in order to evolve and come to fruition. And so I think, yeah, if we can see that if we are experiencing pain or tension or discomfort, that that's actually a good thing. If we can reframe that and go, get curious, wonder why. Why am I feeling this way? What could I be doing? How can I get support? This There's another myth that we should be doing life independently and on our own, and that if we can't do things on our own, there's something wrong with us. So again, going back to that sister spaces, and I think we're better off in community and we're much more powerful in community. And so this idea of, yeah, we need to be strong and independent and kick ass and do everything on our own is actually kind of undermining us. So the more we can say, I need help and ask for help, I would like support, not expecting that we know how to do everything. Definitely in my 40s, I started to invest in myself, and that involved getting coaching. I've always got a coach. I've always got um, people that I will see maybe energetically, like a kinesiologist or chiropractor. There's a whole team basically in life in order to support yourself, I think, to grow and be vulnerable and be able to connect into what's possible, driving it from, yeah, what do I need? What are my desires? And going from there is really important too. So I don't know if I've necessarily answered that question, but there's a couple of things in there around if you are feeling stretched about being vulnerable, that's okay. Like we haven't been taught a lot of this stuff, especially around our sex lives and what is available to us. It's pretty natural for us to feel uncomfortable and out of our depth because we are. Like that's just the honest truth. There's limited information in education. Most of us have parents that don't really want to have to talk about it. So we're fumbling around trying to work it out ourselves, relying on information that might be driven by commercial agenda like porn. And so therefore there's no wonder we're struggling. There's no wonder that people are getting to their midlife. And if you're earlier than that, great, because you can realize it's not your fault. There's no one at fault here. We don't have any role models who show us what it is to be vulnerable, really. You don't see it in politicians definitely don't. Like there aren't many world leaders or anything like that saying, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. These are the things that go on in my life. We're all pretending and hoping that everyone thinks that I mean, even Instagram, you look at it and it all looks rosy and filtered. And so we are hiding the truth all the time. So I think if we can realize that we're just doing ourselves a disservice and the the tension, the pain going towards the things that look uncomfortable and getting curious, which is what you were saying, is really where we can start to get to know ourselves. Getting to know your body and yourself is always, I think, a really great place to start. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, so beautifully said. You packed so many great just statements and information in there. I really enjoyed hearing everything you had to say about that. And I also really appreciate you coming back around to this concept of sisterhood, like you said, or just our relationships with women as women. And I'd love if we could talk about that a little more. You also mentioned this idea of, reaching out for help, support, perhaps even just sharing about our struggles with other women. How has midlife, if that's when that relationship started changing for you, how has that changed? And what would you advise others to do as well? Like, there's such a complex relationship often between women. How can we start to reframe that? Hopefully, even before midlife, if we aren't in midlife now, begin reframing our relationship with other women.
Yeah. I think I got to there was a little bit of intuitive guidance. I'm not sure how it came about, but when I was like, I'm curious about a women's circle, I'm not sure how it came about, but when I got an opportunity to join one, I just dived in simultaneously or not. It was soon after I mentioned how I started to notice the women who I thought were the most radiant, powerful energies on, say, a Facebook group I'd be in, or I was just seeing them in the street or whatever. They were usually the ones that I felt were quite radically expressed. So they might be talking about their sex life, or I was like, how can they do that? Like, how do they have the confidence? And so I was curious. Um, so those sort of things led me eventually to pick up the book Pussy, a Reclamation by Regina Thomas. And I think she really captured for me how you can create sister spaces and sisterhood, which I think she calls everyone sister goddesses, and but she creates practices. So I think what was different was in a friendship, there's all these sort of hidden rules and agendas that no one really knows about. No one's actually created as an agreement. Yet she's starting to introduce these agreements, and you also get them in a facilitated women's circle where there's agreements around confidentiality and maybe, for example, that there's no judgment and that we're all equal. And whilst it might be facilitated, it doesn't mean that one's better than the other. And you're not necessarily, there's no gossip allowed, all that kind of thing. So there was agreements, and I think that felt good for me because then it was like, okay, I understand what I'm walking into, and that's when you can lean into. So that's ironically the structure that's quite masculine is you feel held and you can then lean into that vulnerability that we do desire, knowing that you're being held. So I think for us, we do need, and the ones that I seek them out and I run them myself whenever I have women come together, there are agreements. There are always agreements, and they're essentially, yeah, it's confidential. We don't gossip. We don't. And in fact, all the stuff I run, there's never any alcohol, there's never any coffee. Like it's actually quite clean in terms of I want people to show up as themselves. We're not trying to mask it, which I want you real. And I think sometimes if you are impacted by drugs and alcohol and things like that, you are pretending or you're hiding or you're numbing out. And so I would rather, and what I've noticed is some women resist that for a bit and then they go, actually, I've had a really good night, or I'm so glad that I didn't rely on that, or that's felt good. So I think we've been conditioned that the only ways we socialize and well, I wouldn't say the only ways, but even in celebrations, usually if there's a birthday party or someone's celebrating a wedding, for example, you'd have alcohol there. Like there's this assumption that that's needed in order to have a celebration or have fun. And so I guess I'm questioning anything that takes us away from us being grounded and in our bodies and wondering why. And I think if you could be quite skeptical, you go, there's a reason they don't want us to be in our bodies because we're pretty powerful when we are. So let's just give women a whole bunch of antidepressants and let's give them a whole bunch of things that they need to change their bodies and do all these sort of things. And then we all start to feel, yeah, disconnected.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. You used the word disconnected just now, and I would imagine that's how so many women are feeling, whether it be disconnection from their body, disconnection from other women, or both, more than likely. And I loved hearing about how you do no alcohol, no coffee. I think that's such a fabulous idea for people to really get present to their thoughts and their body and how they're showing up rather than trying to mask it. It comes back around to that vulnerability. I do not know what was happening to me there that you've shared about with us a little bit today. And you mentioned our bodies just now again, and I know you are a somatic sex coach. I'd love if we could dive in a little bit more there. You've mentioned it throughout today, but you mentioned this idea that we are so powerful when we're actually in our bodies, and so many of us aren't in our bodies, though. Could you tell us some more about what that means? How are we powerful when we're in our bodies, and why is it so important to actually listen to our bodies rather than what perhaps society is telling us about our bodies or these disempowering thoughts we might have about really being in our bodies?
It's true. Look, I think to begin with, even like I said before, we live in our heads and our decision making comes from our minds, and we'll weigh up things and go, checklist or the pros and cons and all that sort of thing. And we will think our way through things. And we haven't been given guidance or understanding from a young age, and it's not in our systems to do that, where we've felt into what's the message my body has in response to something. So we're not necessarily listening. And that's so there's even the felt senses. So we've got senses in our body to help us function, touch and taste and smell and all those insight and all those sorts of things, but we're not necessarily using the information that's coming from it and then using it to help us make decisions. So an example is I had back pain most of my life and I just overrode it. I just went, that's what's happening. I didn't take any consideration into that might be a message my body's sending me that I'm doing something that's not ideal. So I just kind of put up with it or didn't look to see if there was a message my body might be sending me. And I think I didn't really understand, which I do now, that there's a lot of somatic reasoning behind what those sort of messages your body might be sending you can be. So your back is your foundation. It's the way how sort of stable you feel in life. And if you're having back pain, for example, so Louise Hay normalized this for us through her book. I forgot what it's called. You Can Heal the World, Your Life, I think. She many, many years ago introduced us to the idea that there can be a somatic interpretation for everything in our body. So our body has messages. Our body, it's the body keeps a score is a very famous text now, which identifies that we store in our body an experience at a time, and especially if it's a traumatic one or one that's not very good, it can be stored in our body. And for women, a lot of the time that's anywhere between your belly button and below. So we store a lot of kind of like our garbage disposal. Anything that we don't like, we don't want to deal with, we'll push down and put in our womb space or in our hips and lower back and all that sort of thing. So you will often find women, and there's lots, as you might know, polycystic ovaries and all sorts of things that go on, menstrual pain and things like that, that women aren't necessarily guided to look at. Is there an emotional reason for that? Is there another source that you could be considering that might be contributing? We're always just kind of going to medical systems to sort us out, which is fraught too because our bodies aren't researched nearly enough. And so even when you do go to the medical system, drugs and our female anatomy haven't been tested and researched enough. So that's a challenge in itself that you mightn't even be getting really good products or advice because it hasn't been based on what's, tried and tested and needed. in order to make really good assessments on your unique body because everybody's different. So yeah, I think going back into your body that we don't even realize that we're not taking on the messages. Part of the reason to fit into society. And so, for example, in a sexual encounter early in life, you might have gone, that feels uncomfortable, but I should like it. So therefore, I'm just going to ignore that pain message, or I'm going to push through, or I'll just let that person do whatever because it'll be over in 5 minutes and that's better than embarrassing myself. Or so we basically early on teach our body that even when it does send a message, we're going to override it. And that has a flow-on effect later on in life. So I think what we have an opportunity at any time, so anyone listening, it doesn't matter what your age is, you can start now and start to listen to the messages and never fake anything ever. So if anything feels uncomfortable, get curious. I wonder why. What's that about? Maybe there's something there for me to listen to. So the pain messages, the even the pleasure messages are something for us to a guidance system. And I don't think we were really ever. Most of the time, people pop pills and just go, oh, well, it's a headache. I'll just get rid of that and I'll keep soldiering on. Even a cough or a cold, there's something you can take that'll numb it out and then you can keep going. Whereas in actual fact, the best thing we can be doing is going, okay, maybe there's a reason I need to stop talking here or I need to go back to bed. And in honoring my body. So the other thing I love to think of is our body is a temple, and no one's ever told me that, and no one's ever suggested that this is a place of reverence and sacredness and something to be honored daily. So, you can even do that in daily practices when in terms of saying something positive to your body, touching your body in beautiful ways, moisturizing your body. I mean, there's all kinds of different practices you can have to actually feel love towards yourself, or if it's not love, at least acceptance and appreciation and gratitude. And that is kind of the beginning. So you're starting somewhere, little baby steps towards a relationship with yourself. And then your body is on your side. I look at it as this is our home in this lifetime. So you do look after your home. When you go home, you clean out things, you check out and say, oh, and, that's a bit drafty there. I might close that window or whatever. You're listening and you're getting curious and wondering what's happening if something doesn't work. And the same thing goes with your body. Get curious. And unfortunately, we're told that we need to go to other things, lift things, suck things in, lose this, change shape, change color, the whole works. And yeah, if we can understand that our happiness has nothing to do with any of the appearances that our society wants us to look like, your your beauty comes from how you show up in and how comfortable you are in your skin. I've no doubt, and that goes back to I think you touched on confidence. I think the people that you look at and I was touching on too, the ones that can talk to their sex life or talk to how they feel in their body or ask for things, that's attractive. That's something that you go, I want what she's having. So like Harry Met Sally in the movie, she's faking it. But the whole idea is like, wow, they're able to express that. That's really powerful and attractive, magnetic.
Yes. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. I love that you just mentioned that. That in itself is such an important reminder, and you're so right. I think the people I am even most drawn to and inspired by and empowered by and just look up to are people who are just so in their body and so aware of themselves, whether it be aware of their pleasure, their thoughts, that what's going on in their body, and really feeling confident and radiant. That stands out so, so much, which is something I think a lot of people definitely don't consider, how they're just showing up in the world and how that in itself is so, so beautiful. And so I loved hearing about that as well as just all the other things. And I would love like just kind of an overwhelming question. Could you tell us about how your own life has changed, how you've showed up differently in the world as you've shifted these narratives around midlife and menopause, and any examples you might have or experiences of the awesome women that you've worked with as well?
Mm. I think, like, if I was to use, it's a bit of a metaphor, but like, I feel like my life's a bit like an onion and I've been peeling layers back. And each time, as I suggested, my comfort zone's growing. So I think it was about 8 years ago, I never went on Facebook. I thought Facebook was really scary because who knows who's watching and who can see me. And there was a lack, I felt I couldn't control and I didn't know what was being seen about me. So I realized there was a visibility thing that was going on for me. And it had to do with, and I think that's coming back to the vulnerability. If you're hiding something and you're afraid that other people are going to see it, that's when you start to get nervous and control things and you actually don't have a lot of power. So what I got to do is I started to peel back the layers of what I felt shame around, what I felt nervous about someone seeing about, like, and got curious, why can't I talk about that? And I want to be around people who are and learn from them. And it hasn't been easy and it's definitely not something that happened overnight, but I guess I've been celebrating and appreciating that it's a process and it's a journey and I don't have to do it overnight, but my confidence has grown and I've thought, oh well, I might as well and I'll try it and then I'll go, okay, that was good. And so I've grown as a person and I feel better about myself because I don't have anything to hide essentially anymore. Well, there's probably a few things, but it's getting less and less.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. When you go, well, even if they see something, I'm owning it. I don't care if you see my varicose veins or my grey hair or my crooked nose or my whatever, right? Like, it's like that's just me. And I'm okay with that. And I actually think, and I'm realizing again that we are all unique and beautiful. And the things that I love about people, often they don't love about themselves. So unfortunately, we're all kind of worrying about what everyone else thinks of ourselves. And, they're not even noticing what we're doing. They're too busy worrying about themselves. So that's another tip as well. Everyone else is too busy worrying about themselves. Even in a photo, if you take a photo of the group, everyone can't even see you. They're too busy looking at themselves. So it's, yeah, when you sort of notice it's, we're kind of worrying about stuff we don't need to worry about most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're so right. And even just you just now saying, I find you to be such a radiant, beautiful, awesome woman. And even before I spoke with you, just your website and the way that you're portraying yourself in the world. And I think people can probably feel how authentic and empowering it is for you. And you just mentioned these things like your gray hair, your veins, or all these different things. And I think because of the way that you be and show up in the world, that's not even something I would ever even think about when talking with you or looking at you. You're just, I think that in itself just shows how the way that we be is the most important thing. And also, yes, of course, everyone is wrapped up in themselves overall, and they're only judging themselves more than likely. They're not sitting around judging us. So, thank you for all the
Actually,
beautiful.
what you just said is really powerful. It's how you be. So the power in life, I did landmark education. I don't know, some people might have listened, who listen might have come across it, but I learned that about 20 years ago, that it's how we be in life that is our power. Like, and I suggested we create from how we want to show up. Do I want to be happy? And if I want to be happy, what are the things that I need to do to be happy? And then I'm going to have the results of someone who is happy. Whereas our world creates this thing where I need to have things in order to then be happy. And it's actually the wrong way around. So every day, like, I choose intentionally, who do I want to be in the world? How do I want to show up? Who can I be? And then if I want to be powerful and courageous today, well, what would that look like? And then I can choose an action inside of that. And that is there where I can then create from. And it's way more powerful than waiting for something to happen in the world and then decide if I meet the criteria for whatever that is, if that makes you happy. I mean, you only need to look at really, really super famous celebrities who've got everything we think in our world makes you happy. Might be success, rewards, gorgeous people on their arms, children, whatever you think is, and we've been told is happily ever after, and they're not happy. Or you see them mentally ill or in rehab or whatever. So there's heaps and heaps of facts to show that this isn't the case. It's what you feel in your body and what turns you on. So I have a podcast called Turned On because I started to realize turned on living is more than just how you feel in the bedroom. And yet, how we express ourselves in the bedroom does seem to impact how we are in life as well. There is a parallel. And I think that's where I definitely got interested is like, okay, if I can't speak to someone who I'm sharing my bed with, openly and honestly and authentically, there's something there for me to get curious about and learn about myself. And so I think that's why I work with women in their midlife because a lot of shame is around this part of their life and they're wanting to have a successful, free, fully expressed life. Well, you need to start working on that part. We've ignored it. And it's like this thing we shove under the carpet and pretend doesn't mean anything, but it really does. So I'm here for it. I'm here to tell people get it out, look at it, get curious, because when you have some freedom to look at it and you don't get any activation by, oh my God, someone sees me or is talk, it's amazing the freedom you get.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
absolutely. Oh.
I'm talking a lot. Sorry.
No, I'm enthralled. I am happy to listen to you talk. It's you just come back so much to all these different themes that are so important, such as that vulnerability again, and just being in our bodies, listening to our bodies, that curiosity, coming back around to that all the time. So just so amazing. And you mentioned your podcast, and I know you have all kinds of different resources and ways that you work with people. I would love if we could talk about that. Anything you'd like to share in more depth
Yeah.
about your work, where people can find you, and we will also have you linked in the show notes, of course, for anyone who wants to dive deeper. But anything you'd like to share about your work and what you do.
Yeah, thanks. I guess more recently, I have got interested in sharing around menopause, and this year because it's my 50th year lapping the sun. I turn 50 next year, but I was like, okay, every week this year, I'm going to focus on something that I think I'm calling it 52 Shades of 50. So it's a bit of a project to go live and share information and talk to some of the things we don't necessarily talk about. So I do that on my Instagram, Penny Sluys. And then I do challenges a couple of times a year called Bringing Sexy Back. So I'm just encouraging women. I like to do things with playful, fun energy and use imagination, creativity. So I take people on a 3-day adventure, which you literally just do from your home or wherever you are, but it's taking you to a place where you realize you can have pleasure and be playful anytime in life, but I want to give them a little container to do that in. So I do that. Um, I do one-on-one coaching. I have a Wonder Women's Club, which is largely events in Melbourne, Australia. So if you're not in Melbourne, Australia, it's not ideal, but I do some online stuff. I'm looking to create some more online content and material. But yeah, that's the main thing. And then my podcast, you can find the same place you'd be able to find most podcasts. It's called Turn on Wild, Free and Sexy in Your Midlife. And the idea was how do we turn on that switch to our soul and light our soul up? And there's all these different ways. So I interview women. I've interviewed one man, but over 100 episodes, and they're women who I feel like have either skills or life experiences that talk to ways that we can access our pleasure, that we can access what it is to be expressed. So yes, definitely there is stuff in the sex realm and sensuality, but there's I've had hiking and cold water dipping and all kinds of different things, tapping and nutrition and all the sorts of things that are relevant. Doesn't matter if you're in your midlife or not. I've got listeners who are younger and older, and I think it's really talking to conversations that we don't necessarily have with other people. Um, or, you know, our world is, oh, well, I'll only have it with my best friend or whatever. So I'm trying to give people access to content and materials and information that they may not get access to in conversation style. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, awesome. Thank you for creating and doing all this work that you do, as well, of course, just sharing about it with us today. And as a reminder to our listeners or viewers, if you are on Spotify or YouTube, you can head to the show notes and check out Penny. We'll have her Instagram, Facebook, website, all the things down there, so you can head over and check that out. And do you have
Come and say
any,
hi.
what do you say, Penny?
Come and say hi if you, yeah, try.
Yes, definitely go and say hi. Listen to the
Let me
podcast.
know if you, yeah,
Yeah,
let me know
all
if you
all the
value out of this.
And do you have any final thoughts or a final message you'd like to share with us today, Penny? No worries if not. I just like to ask.
Yeah, look, I think I've touched on a lot. I think if you begin now to claim and reclaim your body, your life, that would be amazing. And if you feel like that feels overwhelming, to reach out and find people. One of the things I think that I feel like is worthwhile doing is, and when I talked about um, the onion peeling back the layers, there were people and things in my life that I had to let go of. So I think if I could let people know that it's okay to lose some friends or lose some relationships in your life to grow for yourself, that feels a bit edgy and uncomfortable and sometimes like a judgment on yourself. But what I've done is moved away from things that didn't light me up, and I would make choices and trust that those things that would light me up would come into the space that I created, and they always have. So trusting your intuition. And if you don't know what that means, it's usually like the thing that like little flutters or something feels good about it. It has a little sparkle for you. Trust those things. And it your logical brain might go, why are you doing that? That's expensive, or you don't know those people, or you should say no, or you should go back to like what does your body feel like? If it feels like your heart's expanding and you just feel drawn towards it, go to more of that. That would be my advice.
I love that advice. That's so perfect. Such a perfect end to this beautiful conversation today. Thank you so much for being here on the Shame Free Sex podcast and sharing so much wisdom about our bodies, menopause, midlife, sisterhood, all the things, Penny. It was so, so, so great speaking with you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And thank you. I know I do speak just from the heart, so I might have rambled a little bit or gone off track, but yeah, I definitely speak from a place of passion and love and service. I want to be of service to people because I wish I knew this stuff. Basically, I'm speaking to, gosh, if I'd known this earlier, or if only people had said this to me if I was younger, what life might have, no regrets, but I think, wow, I could have done things a lot differently. So, yeah, I want us to all tap into our power and reclaim our bodies and what's available to us, our pleasure.
Mhm.
You are worthy of pleasure. You are an amazing, we're whole, complete, and perfect. And anyone that tells you otherwise they've got an agenda.
Yeah. I love that.
I
So,
want to do Yeah, for
yes.
sure.
Yeah, I don't think there was any rambling today. I think it was all awesome, and I can tell that you are so passionate about this work, and I think that's why it comes through so beautifully, and I know I received it really well, and I'm sure our listeners did as well. So, thank you again. And oh, as I'm losing my voice, I guess I better sign off. Thank you, Penny, and thank you to our shame-free listeners for being here with us once again and embracing your most authentic, shame-free self. Stay sexy, stay safe, stay curious. Explore more at shamefreesex.com. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so that you never miss out on another episode. Bye, everyone.